Welcome back, everybody. In less than 2 hours, Hillary Clinton will begin what could become one of her toughest days in office. She's going to testify in front of many of her critics who'd like to know the details of what happened during that U.S. consulate attack in Benghazi. Congressman Ed Royce is the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which is where the committee before which the secretary will be appearing at 9 a.m. Eastern. It's nice to have you with us, sir. We appreciate your time.
Good to be with you, Soledad.
Thank you. What would you like to know? Obviously, you'll have an opportunity to interview the secretary. First question for her is what?
Well, one of the questions here is we knew that there was an al-Qaeda affiliate, an al-Qaeda group outside of the compound. We knew that there had been several attacks on the compound, several bombs thrown over the wall. And we also knew that there had been this request from our ambassador for more assets. So here you have a situation where I think the first question is, why did the Department of State not extend the team that was offering protection past August from the Department of Defense? The Secretary of State, basically, the decision was made not to provide those assets, which were provided for free from the Defense Department in order to defend our personnel. That's one question we have. Another question, going forward, there are going to be more attacks on our ambassadors by al-Qaeda. It's very important we figure out what went wrong and why, because this is not the first time that we're going to find that our personnel, as we just saw in Algeria, that our personnel overseas is targeted. So when you have systemic failures, as this report has found, it demands a few answers, and those I hope we hear today.
So you want to walk through the specifics of those systemic failures. As I know that you well know, the Secretary has said, listen, I am ultimately, as the Secretary of State, responsible. Here's what she said back in October. I want to play that.
I take responsibility. I'm in charge of the State Department, 60,000 plus people all over the world, 275 posts. The President and the Vice President certainly wouldn't be knowledgeable about specific decisions that are made by security professionals.
Since she's already ultimately said, listen, yes, I'm ultimately the person who's responsible, do you feel that you need to hear that again in this hearing?
I think what we're going to find out in this hearing are more answers to the questions of how it could possibly be when the regional security officer spells out the threats. We've just obtained new memos that indicate that the State Department was aware of these requests and the threats. We know that this went all the way to the 7th floor. For whatever reason, the decision was made to turn down the judgment of our personnel on the ground and to turn down the judgment of the regional security officer in Tripoli, who were requesting these assets and communicating that al-Qaeda was in the process, of threatening our personnel. So to get to the bottom of that, none of this was looked at in the ARB report.
You're talking about the Accountability Review Board report. Well, one of the things they did say, and I think they did kind of broach it. Here, I'll read a little bit of it. It said, for many years, the State Department has been engaged in a struggle to obtain the resources necessary to carry out its work with varying degrees of success. It's also had the effect of conditioning a few State Department managers to favor restricting the use of resources as a general orientation. And I thought maybe that line was in part, in some way, referring to what you're talking about. There was a sort of culture of, listen, you're going to have a tight budget. People are going to give you a hard time about it. So the culture now is don't spend the money, don't put the effort in.
Soledad, this was not about the budget, because these assets were free. These were assets from the Department of Defense. This team was out there to defend, and the request by the regional security officer was, let's extend the presence of this team beyond August. And the response from the State Department is, no, that would be embarrassing to have to rely upon the DOD for the defense of our personnel. So we're not going to do that, regardless of the request in hand, which indicated the degree of concern that they were going to come under attack. And it's looking at these memos that is so compelling and forcing us to ask, what's wrong with the culture of the Department of State that they would not accept free assets? Secondly, we have testimony that, as they said, it was not a budget problem. They had the resources if they were going to provide the defense on their own. The point was they made the decision not to do it. Why, I do not know. And we intend to find out, because this is going to continue to be an ongoing question as our embassies come under attack in North Africa and around the world. Al-Qaeda is targeting us.
It'll be fascinating to see what comes out of this hearing today that you are chairing. Congressman Royce, thanks for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Soledad.
You bet.
Appreciate that.
Talking a little bit about the